What was your, I came looking for copper but found gold, moment? One time I took the garbage out and found $50 on the sidewalk. I used to be a recruiter at a staffing agency. We had a major call center to staff and I asked one of my recent pending hires for referrals from her current call center because they paid shit wages and I'm assuming they'd be interested in leaving. She put my business cards in their break room with no shame. By the end of the month I'd stolen 15 employees and almost put her former employer out of business. I looked like a rock star at work and got all those people a $3.50 raise. Good times. I ran into a woman I'd dated but lost contact with at a bar one night. We talked until last call, and she wanted another beer but couldn't get one. I worked graveyard shift, and drive by her house on my way to work. Saw her lights on, stopped to give her that beer she didn't get. She introduced me to her boyfriend who was there. Long story short, her BF and I became the best of friends. He was best man at my wedding. Still my main man decades later. I might be too late for this but I applied for an internship after graduating college and rather than giving me the internship the company offered me a full-time position instead. Smiley face. I graduated university and had zero job prospects, so I came back as a part-time student so I could get some credits for a professional program. A girl sat in the front of all my classes. I sat at the back. I stared at the back of her head all year long, but never introduced myself until St. Patrick's Day, when we were the only two to show up to our evening lab. You can drop your lowest lab mark, so everyone in the class opted just to not show. We both were drunk, but we were there, and worked together and got the credit. Then we went to the campus bar after class and hit it off. 6 years later, we're married. Had tried to get back together with an ex-GF, no go. Too many factors to overcome, wasn't gonna happen. Thought she was it, but apparently not. Spent about an hour in the car on the way home fuming to a friend, swearing off dating and women for a while. Walking up the stairs to my apartment, I see the door to a lady who had moved in recently. Thought to myself, she seems nice, why don't you invite her in for a movie or just a friendly hang? We celebrate 4 years married in a month, and I couldn't be happier. She tells a similar story, from her perspective. Truly meant to be if I've ever heard it. I went to a dinner at a friend's house. She also invited another friend of hers. I came for spaghetti and left with the woman I married. We crossed 24 years this September. Spent a summer as an eBay seller, back in the early days before everyone knew about selling stuff online, so you could strike gold. At one garage sale, someone sold me a box of comic books for $10. A box of almost 100 comic books. A box of almost 100 comic books from * the 1960s *, mostly issues of Green Lantern and Supergirl. Wound up getting over $400 for that stuff. Honestly, I felt bad and today would patiently explain to the person that they really needed to charge a lot more. But I can say that as an adult with a decent job, as a broke college kid for whom a tank of gas was an extravagance that was a godsend. I went on a date with my best friend's ex-girlfriend, not really expecting anything, but she ended up being amazing and we have been together for 12 years now. My best friend set this up. They had only dated for like a month in high school and everything was cool there. I seen a really sad kid sitting alone at a ballpark, and decided to try to cheer him up. He's now my best friend, and helped me through high school. My family owns a small mining claim near Utah. I was out looking for fool's gold, and instead found a small geode that I sold to a local shop for $100. I went with my friends to adopt a cat. Long story short, they were worried about my depression, and I wanted an older cat, about 5 to 7 years old. That way it would be trained and calm. As I was waiting for them to bring me one, I pointed to one of the workers was cleaning out a different cage and a young kitten escaped. It ran right up to me and hid behind my back. I was slouched against the wall. I picked it up and pet it for a bit. It then worked its way into my hoodie and arranged itself so its face was between my chin and neck and fell asleep. My friends said, "It is choosing you." I asked how old the cat was and found out she was almost 1 but was already trained. So I adopts her. Now I have a 6-year-old cat who refuses to sleep alone and still tries to put her face between my neck and chin. Here she is. https://imager.com/a/05fx9 closing parenthesis. Hired a cleaning lady to help with housework. Turns out that not only was she an excellent house cleaner, but she's also a gourmet chef. Each time she'd come to clean, she'd whip up a delicious dinner for us before leaving, no extra charge, except for ingredients, really first-class fare, too. I have 2 instances of this. 1. I went into a music store strictly to look at literature for scales, chords, theory, etc. and to buy a set of guitar strings. Curiosity got the best of me, so I asked the guys at the guitar counter if I could try a few Gibson Les Pauls out, as I wanted to see what each neck profile felt like. After a few guitars, the head sales rep told me to stay where I was as he wanted me to try out something that just came in used. He came back out front with a beautiful AAA flame top Heritage Cherry Burst Les Paul. Internally I told myself, crap, I should not have seen that. I then played it a bit and promptly checked my checking account, since I just knew it would be one that got away if I didn't buy it. Needless to say, I bought it. Walked in for a $5 set of strings and walked out with a $1,400 used Gibson Les Paul that would have cost me $3,000 new. 2. Just the other week I walked into the same music store as above to look at, again, strings. I took a look at their used amplifier section and saw a used Ignator Tweaker 15 amp for $250. As I've played a good friend's Ignator and knew how good it sounded and how much he raved that it could be played at low volume apartment levels and still get a good tube amp sound, I bought it on site. I also walked out with a free set of strings. TLDR, walked into a music store for guitar strings, came out with Equipment Magnitude's more expensive plush-free guitar strings. When I was younger I was super into the WWE and Mick Foley was one of my favorite wrestlers. I happened to be in Orlando at Universal Studios and Disney for a family trip the same time as the Monday Night Raw event that week. When we were initially trying to plan the trip, I cried and cried for my parents to get tickets to the match. They gave me an ultimatum. The day we were supposed to be at Universal Studios was the same day as the match, so I had to choose the match or the park. I eventually gave in and chose the park because it would be my first time there and I knew my mom really wanted to go too, instead of taking me to a wrestling match. When we rode the King Kong ride, we were the last ones off the ride. Before we walked down the ramp to the gift shop, I stopped because I had to tie my shoes. At that moment, the next ride car behind us pulled up and a man and his wife and kids were getting off. I found it odd it was only them on the car until I realized that man was Mick Foley. I froze in awe but mustered up enough courage to say hi and to tell him he was my favorite wrestler in the world. I shook his hand and he smiled with that goofy smile, missing teeth and all, and walked down the ramp. To this day, that was one of the coolest moments in my childhood. So, although I didn't get to see the match, I got to meet my favorite wrestler and it was way better than any match from the nosebleed could have been. Googling the answer to one homework question and finding a Quizlet with the entire chapter's solutions. I went to a Goodwill looking for a PDA, I found a laptop instead and #X200B. Guess who now has a laptop and #X200B? Edit. I got the laptop for anyone concerned, yes the laptop works, edit too. Why do I have to say this? A PDA, Personal Digital Assistant. I was in English years ago in 7th grade and I wanted to be funny and get a few people to laugh, so I made a stupid pun, funny to me at the time. Rather than a few people laughing, only one person did, but that person became one of my best friends to this day because of that, and if that's not gold then IDK what is? Edit. Thank you so much for my first award. And the pun I made had to do with a picture on the screen of a guy getting hit by a deer in a pickup truck, so the pun was, hey, that guy got rammed. Thinking of it now makes me feel so cringe, but hey, it was 7th grade. Forced to clean the storage area at my job, promised some extra pay and maybe some stuff the store won't sell. Whoever did inventory was shit at it. Went home with 5 boxes full of unopened toys, ranging from small Lego sets, Transformers and Barbies. Had probably about 100 of these toys. Gave it away to relatives. I was recently homeless and staying in a shelter and desperate for a job. Applied for one for which I wasn't really qualified. Nailed the interview. They asked for my salary requirement. I asked for $25 an hour. They countered with $26. Then they bumped it up to $28 after 3 months. I would have been happy with copper. This feels like 24-karat gold. Open mouth smile. When I was starting grad school, I went to the Learning Center to find work study as a tutor. A woman overheard my conversation and offered me a job as the technical editor for an academic journal. After I graduated and couldn't find work in my field, history, I became an editor. I went to the supermarket to get some discounted food when I was about to turn 18 and decided to buy a lottery ticket. When I scratched the lottery ticket open, it turned out I 3,000 won. The company upstairs from my nonprofit was bought out 3 years ago. They had to relocate, and were leaving a lot of unwanted stuff behind. I thought it would be mostly junk, but I scored 2 decent desktop PCs, with no HDs, a Xerox color laser printer, the kind that uses the crayons, and a super great office chair for my office. Plus a few reference books on things like Unix, networking, and SQL. Why not take all this stuff with them? I dunno, venture capitalism is weird. I went to a very low-rated ice cream joint and got the most recommended thing on the menu. I was expecting trash, but it's currently my favorite form of ice cream. Edit. Wow, 250 plus upvotes. Thanks a lot, you all. I was looking to buy my first car. I wanted an 80s Camaro RS without T-tops and maybe even a V8. My budget was $4,000, so not much wiggle room, and whatever I got was gonna need a lot of work, or so I thought. We were driving around and we saw 87 Camaro IROC, literally my dream car, and decided to stop and ask the owner if they're interested in selling it. At first it was a no, but after a little convincing she decided she would sell it. When we asked her how much she wanted for the car, she said 12. I was super disappointed because, as I said earlier, my budget was $4,000. Then she clarified and said she wanted $1,200. I was so excited because at that price I can paint it and get whatever wheels I want. I got my dream car for less than I could have paid, and it was better than what I originally wanted. My dating life was going nowhere. I installed Tinder, thinking not much of it. I'm now engaged. My company was hosting a volunteering project to give back to the community, and I volunteered to participate to make myself feel like a decent person and of course help out in these trying times. The person in charge of my group happened to be a director in a function I'd been desperately trying to get into for the past year. I introduced myself and the rest is kind of history. About 3 months later, and I just accepted a job offer from a group within that function. All thanks to the volunteering opportunity that created a connection that pretty much changed my life for the better. I started hanging out with this girl I met on a study abroad when we got back to school. I wasn't super into her, but she was cool and had lots of sorority girlfriends, and my dick thought that would be a good opportunity to meet more girls. Fast forward 3 years, she became a best friend, first girlfriend, and first person I truly fell in love with. To hell with all the other girls. I was looking for my school notebook but instead found my best phone charger I lost a while ago. I only find stuff I'm not looking for. Went to Goodwill not expecting much and came out with a 1970 Hot Wheels Fat Track playset. They are like $300 now, and I always wanted one because they are wide and the cars can pass each other, but because of the price I couldn't afford it.